They can't keep this up anymore. The Russians are advancing every single day. They're taking towns almost every single day. Trump knows this. The US knows this. Now we got to convince Zelenskyy to stop being an idiot and know this. Because the problem with Zelenskyy is being extremely hard-headed. He basically wants the Russians to completely pull out, give them back Crimea, which they lost in 2014, which they're never going to give that up. They got a fucking naval base there. Strategically, it's very important for them. They ain't give a shit back, bro. This is what you need to know, all right? So right now, guys, Russia and Ukraine are pretty much kind of like almost like at a standstill. And what I mean by this is that this has now become a war of attrition. And a war of attrition is a war where, okay, who can last longer? We know that unfortunately for Ukraine, they can't last that much longer, guys. They just simply can't. They don't have the manpower. Too many of their men have died. And right now, Russia has the advantage. Now, early in the conflict, Russia was beating the crap out of Ukraine. They were taking territory left and right. But Ukraine was able to launch a counteroffensive and push Russia back, and there were some glimpses of them potentially being able to have a chance in this conflict. But unfortunately, the Russian military is too powerful, is too big, and we are only supporting them from a logistics/assistance type role. We don't have boots on the ground, okay? Now, it's one thing to have this problem for a year. It's another thing to have this problem for 3 years. So what's ended up happening, guys, is Ukraine simply doesn't have the manpower to stop the Russian offensive. So what Russia is doing is they're slowly fucking meat grinding into Ukraine. Slowly but surely, but they're taking land, okay? They weren't able to get land as quickly as they thought. You know, the Kremlin basically thought, oh, we'll be able to go ahead and take over Ukraine in a couple of days, which technically they can, by the way, just so you guys know. Technically they can, right? If they wanted to, they could have just fucking did airstrikes for a week straight and then come in on a ground offensive and then take the country over, just like we did with Iraq. But the thing is this. Ukrainians, and we went over this in history, Ukrainians are pretty much Russians, bro. They used to be one people, you know, to us Westerners, we look at it like they're the same, but there's, you know, they have little subtle nuances, whatever. It is what it is, right? But they're basically like the same people. And half the country is divided with ethnic Russians, half the country is divided with ethnic Ukrainians. Putin knows that Kiev and further out west is going to be very difficult to control, right? Though he could have air-bombed the fuck out of the country and taken it over, he wanted to take Ukraine intact, especially the eastern region, which has a lot of ethnic Russians, okay? And these ethnic Russians have been fighting with the Zelenskyy Ukrainian government for a while, okay? We're talking about tens of thousands of people dying, et cetera, in the Donbass region. And no one talks about that because obviously that would hurt the narrative of the West because they have to show the Russians as the aggressors. And we've been trying to expand NATO for a very long time. So pretty much Russia said, fuck it, we're going in. And that's what ended up happening. So now that we've been in this war for 3 years now, chat, remember, they invaded February 24th, 2022, right? Now that we're in this war and, you know, it's very clear that they don't have the resources to keep this going, Donald Trump comes in and says, all right, we got to end this shit, right? Biden got us into this. We got to end this shit because Biden and the Democratic Party, basically we've overstayed our welcome. We thought, oh yeah, let's go ahead and fight the Russians. Let's go ahead and kill a bunch of them. Let's, you know, have them drain their resources. Let's see their capabilities because, guys, just so y'all know, this war, a big reason we're involved is because it allows us to see Russian capabilities, okay? As you guys know, the Russians are another superpower. We want to know what they have, how they conduct warfare, etc. So in a scenario where we would fight them, we would know what they're doing. And we're arming the Ukrainians with our technology to see how our technology works against the Russians, okay? Now, have we given them everything? No. Because obviously, you know, they don't want them shooting missiles into fucking Moscow and shit like that and create problems for us. So we're doing as much as we can with as little of U.S. involvement as far as soldiers go. And then we're going up the highest we can in the escalation ladder with weapons and support without getting dragged into the war ourselves. Does that make sense, chat? Coming in from a logistical perspective. But they can't keep this up anymore. The Russians are advancing every single day. They're taking towns almost every single day, right? Or every couple of days. We're at a point now where we need to stop the Russian onslaught, right? And Trump knows this. The U.S. knows this. Now we got to convince Mr. Zelenskyy to stop being an idiot and know this. Because the problem with Zelenskyy is being extremely hard-headed. Zelenskyy, just so you guys know, he basically wants the Russians to completely pull out, give them back Crimea, which they lost in 2014, which they're never going to give that up. They got a fucking naval base there. And it's like their only access to the waterways, right? Strategically, it's very important for them. It's what will kick this shit off anyway. This entire war, by the way, guys, was kicked off in like 2013. Don't think this war started in 2022, guys. This has been going on since the fucking Maidan Revolution. When we fucking overthrew the Ukrainian government and we put in a Western stooge. This conflict has been going on for way longer since 2022. Now Russia's finishing the job. So Putin thinks, oh yeah, you guys got to leave Crimea. You guys got to leave Ukraine altogether. And you can't keep any of the territory, you know, that you've taken. Putin, meanwhile, they ain't give a shit back, bro. And this meeting, right, when we summarized yesterday, it was a W for both. Now, for Putin, the reason why this meeting was a W is because now the international world has to recognize he's real, okay? Over the past 3 years, guys, the Democrats have been working really hard to ensure that the international community does not take Russia seriously. They've sanctioned them, not stop doing business with them, will not recognize any of the land that they've taken from Ukraine. They've taken roughly 20 to 30% of land all across eastern Ukraine from the Ukrainians. So the Biden administration and the U.S. government in general, their stance on all this, and the EU as well, basically was like, you're a war criminal, you're a dictator, we're not going to acknowledge and or recognize any of the territory gains you've made, and we're not going to exercise diplomacy with you. That was the mantra prior to Trump coming in. But once Trump came in, he said, you know what, bro, we got to fucking do something. We're not going to win this thing. They're getting stronger by the day. They're taking more land by the day. More and more people are dying by the day, and it's costing us a lot of fucking money, okay? Namely the money. So us running this exercise and seeing how our military stacks up and our technology to Russia is no longer worth it. Also, another thing that's important, the Russians want Ukraine way more than we want to defend it. Let me make that explicitly clear for you guys, okay? The Russians want Ukraine way more than we want to defend it, okay? And they've shown that they are willing to throw bodies at the problem, and they're willing to fight for years for this problem, because this has been an issue for them from a national security perspective for many years, over a decade. This war didn't start in fucking 2022, okay? So this is how we've kind of ended up in the position that we're in now, where the Ukrainians can't even defend. There's a bunch of barrier lines, guys, that the Ukrainian military have drawn. They can't even patrol them. They have to rely heavily upon landmines to be able to booby trap areas, because they can't even put men out there. So it's an L, bro. It's really an L. And that's what this meeting is about, okay? Figuring out the path towards a ceasefire, because the West just wants a ceasefire right now. And Trump understands the elephant in the room is, if I want this ceasefire, I have to come in and acknowledge and recognize Russia. So that's why this is a big W for Russia. Putin is being looked at. He's legit now. Now, for the U.S., the reason why this is a W, despite what people might say, is because for Trump, no one talked to Putin for like 4 years, okay? In the Biden administration, no one spoke to him since 2021. We basically had like an isolationist policy with them. We weren't going to recognize their gains. We were going to support Ukraine no matter what. You know, we hate Putin. He's an evil dictator, blah, blah, blah. So Trump opening the door for diplomacy was a big W for him. Also, make no fucking mistake about it, guys. Donald Trump is pursuing a Nobel Peace Prize, okay? He is pursuing a Nobel Peace Prize on this presidency. It's what he's looking for, okay? Don't let anybody fucking fool y'all. That's why he went out of his way to get involved with the Congo conflict, the India-Pakistan conflict, the Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict. He's resolved several different conflicts over the past couple of months, which I will give him credit for. Right? Some of them were winding down. They weren't really at the height. And then also, he takes credit for, even though it's not over, he takes credit for ending the Iran-Israel 12-day war as well. But that war is going to kick back on. There ain't no fucking debating that one, okay? Even Marco Rubio yesterday slipped. If you guys were watching my show yesterday, Marco Rubio named all the fucking conflicts that Trump stopped, but he did not mention the Israel-Iran conflict, because he knows that the Israelis are going to attack the Iranians again. It's fucking happening. They already did a fucking false flag pretty much on Tehran, where I think they blew up like a oil depot or some shit like that. Fucking big ass flames all across Tehran. So, guys, we are definitely going to see a second round of boom, boom, boom. It's inevitable. Boom, 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 boom. Tell us if this is what you get for all your evil deeds. Boom, 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 boom. But all jokes aside, we're absolutely going to see another war between Israel and Iran. So on the Iranian side, the Iranians have been trying to get better air defense towards the Israelis' air force, right? Because they have the very good air force. And then on the Israeli side, they're trying to up their missile defense system with the Iron Dome, David Sling, etc., and the THAAD, right? Because the big reason why the Israelis needed the war ended was because every day the Iranians were shooting in hundreds of missiles into Tel Aviv and into Haifa. And Israel's missile defense system only has so many interceptor rockets. To make it simple for you guys, for an interceptor rocket to destroy one of the incoming missiles costs a lot of fucking money. I think it costs Israel like $100 million a day, guys, just to defend itself from Iran. $100 million a day, okay? And these interceptor missiles are like twice the price of the missiles that are getting destroyed. The drones and the missiles. In a war of attrition like that, right? Where you're talking more about Air Force and a ballistic missile program fighting each other, it was not good for Israel. They would not have been able to last. And Tel Aviv absolutely got hit very hard. Don't listen to what the media tells you. Don't listen to what the morons say, the Zionists or whatever. Bro, Tel Aviv was getting fucked up. Now, unlike the Israelis, I will tell y'all that Iran was getting fucked up too. Absolutely. They had scientists getting killed. They had generals getting killed. They had a bunch of their military infrastructure get bombed. But the difference is that the Israelis are lying about how much damage they took. They absolutely took a bunch of damage. The reason why they don't want anybody to know, though, is because they don't want the Iranians to know how accurate their missiles are. So it was against the law for journalists to show places getting hit or the damages. Okay? And I've shown you guys videos of this. German fucking reporters are walking around Tel Aviv trying to document the damages, and Israeli officials are like, hey, get the fuck out of here. You can't document this. It was literally illegal. So we'll see what happens. But many different military analysts and political commentators are estimating that we're going to get a part 2 of this war either end of this month or by end of the year, which I think is 100% credible. 100% credible. The Israelis are now taking over Gaza. They're beginning the occupation, the full-time occupation of Gaza. So I think once they kind of have that settled, they're going to wage the offensive against Iran. Right? But again, since it's a conflict that is basically an Air Force fight, make no mistake about it, guys, there's not boots on the ground when it comes to this conflict with Iran. It's all missiles and fighter jets. The Israelis use fighter jets and do airstrikes. The Iranians use ballistic missiles and rain them down on fucking Tel Aviv and Haifa. So that's how this war is going. And the Iranians, even the Israelis, I think Ben Gvir admitted this, they underestimated Iran's ballistic missile program. It's a really fucking good ballistic missile program that they got. And they got hypersonic missiles. So, bro, hypersonic missiles, you can't stop those. Boom, boom, boom. They invested a lot of money into that.